Hello humans, welcome to the M Word, the Manx Sports podcast brought to you by Martin, that's me.
And Matt.
That's him. Hello. I'm not to do the hello, am I? Sorry. So straight into our sponsor, billboards.im. Just a quick thank you to those guys. You'll see them now we're allowed out and about. You can see the billboard banners down at the C terminal in town there. The guys will help you get your brand awareness out, and whatever, sales, anything you've got going on, those guys will help you. So get in touch with billboards.im. Just on the intro there, Matt, it's a bit of a cliche, sorry, but it's the Proclaimers and Walk 500 miles, which I think is probably appropriate for our guest today, Robbie. Thanks for coming down, Robbie. It's much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thanks very much for inviting me.
A pleasure. I think what I find really interesting, we were just chatting about before we came on air, was obviously a legend in the Isle of Man, and I can't believe many people don't know who you are. But when you actually search for you on the internet, maybe this is a good thing. There's not that much on there. Obviously, there's the Parish Walk fame, but you've done a lot more in sport, which is great because now we can rumble through the years and find out what you've been up to over these years. So like I say, thanks for joining us. So
you're welcome. Yeah. I don't know. I think everyone sort of knows me more as a walker, whereas I'm not really a walker. I'm more of a runner and other things before that, really. It goes back quite a way.
So, let's start off then. Are you come over? Are you Manx, or Manx as the hills?
Manx as the hills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where were you born?
Well, I was born obviously in Douglas. Lived for about year one in up in Pulrose, and then we moved up to Williston after that.
Right.
And then from probably about 2 right the way up to first year I done 1 year at Balcomie, and then we moved down to Castletown. We've been in Castletown ever since.
Oh right, okay.
So most of my childhood was brought up in Liverpool, in Williston.
Yeah. And sport, important part of your life in those early years?
I think football was really. I was just sort of football mad then, playing football in the park and stuff like that. I was always on the go. I always remember that. I always remember because when we lived in Williston, Mum used to send us off. Dad would send us up the shops to get bits and pieces, and I'd sort of run up the shops and run back again.
Right.
And I remember one woman that used to live in the corner was telling me, "Oh, you're always running, you. Why don't you stop running and walk?" I said, "No, it's quicker to get home, isn't it?" She
gave you that advice for 50 years later.
Yeah, I think so. I do remember vividly, like she was just saying, "Why are you running all the time?" But no, football was the bit of a passion then,
And did you play for clubs, or was it just a kick around the park type of thing?
Well, in obviously in my early years there, no, it was just kicking around in the park. That was all. I was at primary school, Williston Primary School, and I think we had a headmaster that came in maybe the last 2 years I was there, and he introduced football into it.
Right.
So we had 2 football teams, the first team and the second team going, and I remember being captain of the second team, so I got promoted to the first team a bit later on. Right. But no, that was great to have football because prior to that, you watched it and played it in the park, but you never actually had a football team to play for. So we played for Williston Primary for a number of years.
Where'd you play?
I'm a winger, really. Yeah.
Right.
I'm just Speedy Gonzalez.
Oh, right, okay. That makes sense.
Out on the wing, that's where it was. And then after that, later on, a few years later on, I sort of made. When I moved down to Castletown, obviously I was playing around with the lads in Castletown and that, but it was very difficult to get in their side and that Special Kell Cup and that, so I went and joined Colby, and I sort of was a Colby man for most of my time. Really.
Oh, right, okay. And were your parents into sport? Were they sports at all?
Not really. I don't really remember like watching it, but I never remember my dad or my mum having any sort of real backstory into sport in any way whatsoever, and I like that. My 2 other brothers are not really into it either, I don't think.
Okay, right.
Yeah, they might watch it, but I don't think they've physically actually done much. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So I was a bit of a black sheep, I suppose, in some respects, yeah.
So you moved down south of the island, teenage years, I guess, then you move into employment, I guess, when you leave school.
Yeah.
What did you start doing for employment?
When I left school, my idea was to go to horticultural college, which I'd accepted at a college at Parish Walk, but on the proviso that I'd done a year's practical work, so it meant I had to go away to Liverpool, and I went away to Botanic Gardens in Liverpool in Coldstones Park, Hart Hill area, and I was doing my year's practical then, but I just got a little bit fed up with it really, so I just came home after nearly seeing my year out, and then I just done a bit of labouring on a building site, but then there was a a garage, a motorcycle and car dealer that was building a garage at the end of our road in Hope Street. S&S Motors, Short and Schumann, and I was just speaking to them because I was interested in mechanics and stuff. Would they give us a job? And they were building a garage, and he said, when we built the garage, come down and see us. But they'd finished it, and he actually came up and knocked on the door, see if we still wanted the job.
Right.
So I went to work for S&S Motors for, I probably started there about 76, 7 or something like that, right the way through to 84.
And is that where they are now, the S&S, or was it moved? I don't know where Hope
They
Street
were in
is.
Hope Street,
right.
where Capital International out of there. They've got our old garage, like it's completely different now. It looks a lovely building. But S&S is now around the corner on the main road. So when he built the new garage, that was left that year. It was about 84. I moved then up to Manx Airlines, up at the airport. But in the years when I was at the garage, I got heavily into motorcycle sport, off-road stuff.
Okay.
So is that football?
I was
attention off football.
No, well, I was still playing football, but then I got involved with the motorcycle as well. I got involved with. I bought myself a trials bike because George was selling these Kawasaki KT250s at the time, so I got one of them, and I rode solo trials for a couple of years and done the Manx 2-day trial and quite a lot of trials in the island here.
Right. They're over the rocks, the trials, those types of things, are they?
But Steve Colley used to do, you know. And then after a few years doing that, I then decided I wanted to have a go at doing sidecars. So we built a sidecar onto the bike. And my girlfriend at the time there, she jumped in the chair with me, and we had a couple of years doing sidecar trials, and we were quite successful at that, more so than it was in the solo stuff.
Just locally was that?
Locally, yeah. Although no, we did go away and compete in a couple of British Championship rounds. I got a different bike. I then progressed from a Kawasaki up to a Montesa, a purposely built one, and that was a lovely bike to ride. So we competed at quite a few events in the UK British Championship rounds.
Okay. I take it as a lot. I'm just trying to imagine when you do the trials are hard enough on a single, and then now you stick in another, a big bulky thing. How did you find that?
I found it a lot easier than doing the solo trials, to tell you the truth.
Well, that's it. Do they make are the courses the same as a single, or do they make them?
No, they had special sections set out for the sidecars. The turns wouldn't be so tight, and the steps wouldn't be maybe so high, but they're still tough. No, they'd make the sections would be a little bit wider, So
how does that test a relationship when you're doing it with your
partner?
partner?
We're quite good actually. Yeah, we got on well, and she got fired out of the chair a few times. And I remember
and you got fired in the ear for doing it.
And I do remember one time we were down the bottom of Barrow there. There's a place, Willie Clue or something. I forget what it is now. And there's a trial up there, and I remember we were coming out of a river once up a bit of a bank, and Sarah's foot slipped off the peg and went into the sprocket and chain and got her foot stuck in that. But she was wearing really sort of solid leather boots, but I was still trying to make the bike go.
What's the problem here?
I just wondering why we couldn't get out, and then I looked around, she was screaming at me. So, no, she was all right. It was really, really good. Yeah. But then after a while, we went away in 1980, and we caught up with the International 6-day Enduro, or 6-day trial as it was then, which was in France in a place called Brioude. And I really liked the look of that, so I sort of got a bit of passion for doing enduro riding. Okay. So I'd done quite a bit of motocross, and then got involved in doing some enduro riding as well.
Explain to me what enduro is.
Sorry?
That's exactly what's
the difference. Okay, then well I'd done motocross for a bit, so obviously scramble as motocross is like. Well, enduro is it's basically a road going. Well, it's a motocross bike. Virtually, the gearing's a bit different. It's not quite so pokey, and they're road registered. And what they do is you have you'll have a group of it's almost like a rally. It is where you'll have a group of sections where you have to go from A to B, and you've got a certain amount of time which to do it in. Right. And then when you come to that end of that section, then you have to clock out. But you have to clock out on your time. Yeah, I'm sorry. You come into the next section, and you can only go in this next section on your allotted time to go in. Okay, if you go in too early, you get docked. A minute. I think if you go in a minute early, you get docked. I don't know. I forget what the point system is now. But for every time you're coming into the section you were late, for every minute you got a point added on to it. So obviously you had to do it in the time that was actually allocated for you. And then once you've done that section, there's like a void, a no-go zone sort of thing, where before you went into the other section, and you had a lot of time to go in. And obviously, if you went in late, you got sort of penalised for it.
Yeah.
But you didn't. You had to try to catch your time up. But if you went in early, it was even worse. And I think if you even went in, I forget what the actual thing was. I think if you went in something like 5 minutes early, you got disqualified from it.
Oh, right, okay.
And you had
so
up
very
to
much about managing that time.
Yeah. And that's what it was. And you know, and you're going over cross country, you're going through plantations. It's a bit like your mountain biking, really.
Yeah. Okay.
But with a motorbike, and you had a time section where you had to go in at a certain time and come out at a certain time, and if you came in late, you got points onto you.
And those sections, are they same sections in a plantation, or are you in one plantation and you suddenly get yourself across the island to?
Then you might go on to a bit of a road section, then you had time to make to go before you went to the next group of sections.
So it would be similar to a rally, really. In that
but it'd be all over the island, and we'd done quite a few British Championship events in the UK, and because the main event that everyone worked up to was an event called the International 6-Day Enduro. As I say, when I went to France, it was known as the International 6-Day Trial at the time, but then changed it to Enduro. And it was going to be held in 1983 in Wales, so we looked at trying to get some teams to compete in that, local teams, and it'd been in the Isle of Man before in 65, I think, and 75. And they had locals obviously competing in that, but never in one that was off the island. So Wales was the nearest place that had ever been before.
Right, okay.
So we tried, we got a committee together and a group together, and we raised enough funds to get two teams of 3 in the event, and we had 2 solo riders riding in it as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So, and that was down in Bluffwells in Wales. And it's probably it's classed as the International 6-Day Enduro. It's classed as the Olympics of off-road motorsport, really.
Right.
So we went down there, and we actually got 3 lads that finished, and they got bronze medals. And if you come within a certain time, you get a gold medal, a silver medal, or if you finish, you get a bronze medal.
Right.
And everyone, the established people, was thinking that we'd find it really, really hard. But actually, we got 3 lads that finished it. Unfortunately, I seized my bike up on the second day.
Right.
But you sort of fast forward it then about another 20 odd years or more, and David Knight comes along, and he's doing that sport, and he ends up being world champion.
Yeah.
And we went away. I remember going away and seeing him in '86.
Right. Okay.
His last 2 rounds were in Italy, and up to that point, he was 100% record. He'd won every single round,
Right.
and he actually won the last 2 rounds in Italy as well. But they tried to penalise him by saying he went into a check early,
Right.
and it wasn't. It was just that the officials had put the check in the wrong place apparently,
Oh, right.
and everyone sort of they appealed against it. So David has the incredible result of 100% record of winning everything,
Right.
and that is one hell of a tough sport, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
right.
And we watched him there in Italy and just made world-class riders look really, really mediocre.
Right, okay.
And then since then, fast forward again, you've got the McCanny boys now, Jamie and Danny McCanny doing a similar thing in the world scene. So
Yeah. So. A couple more names to the podcast, I think.
Yeah.
So the team enduros, how do they work? Do you do sections each?
Or
you all do it?
You're all riding, and whatever penalty points you get is added to whatever penalty points the other person
so it's just
gets.
A collective.
Right, and the idea is to have you had 4 men in a team. We were in a club team. We only had 3, but the main the main contenders, which is a trophy and vase contenders, like what David Knight would do. They have a team of 4, and obviously the idea is to get the whole 4 people finishing. One man drops out, then they get maximum points added on to them every day they're not competing. And it's a thankless task then, really.
Right. What's the main attribute to be a good enduro rider?
Obviously really good on a bike, skills of the bike, but
is that upper body strength or just riding the bike?
I think just total bike fitness for them guys, but I think now they do work on the fitness element side as well. Whereas in the early days, people just rode a bike and they just got sort of bike fit. They'd be able to get through sort of rough sections and stuff like that. But no, the likes of Knight and the McCanny boys, and there's other lads since then, before them, the lads that we were in Wales with, we had like Neil McKee, Stevie Collins and Chuck Brigazzi.
Okay.
And then they went on to then compete in further events. in the years after that, and then eventually I can't remember what year sort of night it came on the scene at, but you know, the boys had sort of set the ball rolling for them guys, and Knight had just took the world over really in that off-road sort of sport.
Yeah, I'll have to get him on at some stage.
You need to, because he's a living legend in his sport, really, you know. Yeah.
And then I presume at some stage did that sport end for you, or that passion, or
well,
did you move on?
I was heavily into motorsport for a number of years now. I think 83 I seized my bike up in 83 in the 6th day in Wales, which is a big disappointment because the first day was really crap day. It rained all day, and I think most people were on penalty points at the end of the day. And the second day I started getting the groove. In my block of 4 riders that we set off with was the 250 world champion Galtieri Brazzini, an Italian guy. And for that the morning of the second day, I was staying with him on time. You know, we were both sort of like we didn't amass any sort of points at that point. But then my bike seized up, giving it a stick through a forest. I was only riding a 175 where they were all on 250s. You see, because I was in the 250 class.
Okay.
But my bikes had been thrashed for the best part of a year, and I really didn't have the funds to sort of like rebuild it and that, or even get a new bike. So when I came out of that, came home, I then I decided to pack in the sort of like motorsport riding side of it, but I decided to in 1984 just be clerk of the course of the Manx 2-day trial, the solo bikes, which is a big event that normally takes place at the end of August or the beginning of September in the island here. It's a trials, 2-day trials, and it's a really big thing. So I went out and I sort of plotted a load of land and found some new places to have sections and stuff like that. So I just put my little penny's worth back into the sport, and then I just sort of got away with it. And after that I just had to get my head above water because it was quite an expensive thing to be in, buying new tyres and parts for your bike and stuff like that. Even working for a garage, it was quite expensive. So I just got out of that completely, and then I sort of went back to just playing football for a bit.
Back to Colby.
Yeah, at Colby. I sort of had a second go at playing football again in Colby, and I sort of played combination team for a bit, and then from 85, that's when I sort of I got into the running. I was always doing running. I'd sort of like early on in the 70s I got roped into doing with the Castanale drinkers, I got roped into doing Parish Walk. I think my first Parish Walk, I've got a little trophy, a team trophy. It goes back to 1974.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I've got that, and also got roped into doing a TT course walk.
Okay.
A TT relay. I think my first TT course walk was 1973.
Okay.
First Parish
Walk. Was that
walk,
the whole?
That was the whole course. Yeah. That was
can't imagine walking a mountain nowadays.
Yeah. I know. So that's when I sort of got a little bit of a snippet of walking, but my main thing was running, so I was also got involved. They roped us into doing the Manx Mountain Marathon, and all the fell races like the Laxey Horseshoe fell race, because the Castanale drinkers, they were sort of like trying to raise money, for various. They were a charity and just raising funds for various different things, and one of the things they wanted, obviously, if it wasn't for the Castanale drinkers, maybe the Parish Walk possibly might have died out at one point, because at one time in the 70s, the mid sort of 70s, they had more officials than they did walkers in the event at one point. Really? Yeah. So I remember one year the Castanale drinkers put about 5 teams in, which boosted it by another 20 walkers. So obviously Parish Walk kept going on, but I sort of stepped away from that then, got involved with the motorcycle, then got involved with come back to football. And then in 85, a friend of mine, I was working for Manx Airlines at that time, he said, do you fancy going and do the Dublin Marathon? So there's a friend of mine, Mike Gallion. So we were just doing a little bit of run together, and so we decided to enter the Dublin Marathon and just have a go at training for it. So that was my first marathon.
And how did that go?
It was good up until about, I think, about the
standard 18 miles, was it?
No, well, it wasn't hitting the wall in any way. It was about 19 miles maybe, or something like that, 20 miles. And I just got a searing pain in my leg, and the side of my knee, and it was just crippling me. It was, I was hobbling along. So I hobbled along. I just checked on my time, because I got the certificate before we come up here, and I was 3 hours and 11 for that.
Wow!
And I really wanted to do under 3 hours. My main focus is under 3 hours, and it was a bit disappointing.
Still not a shabby time though, but
No, but it's a bit shabby, really, I think. And because not when you know what you're capable of doing.
Yeah.
So when I came back, I went to see about my knee, getting something done with me, and I had a little bit of, at the time they just started sports injury clinic, sports counselling with a department at Nobles Hospital. So I went there, and to be honest, they just sort of looked at it, put an ice pack on it, and at the time, and just said, "Oh, what I suppose you class as your IT bands now. They're too tight." Well, they've always been solid. They never have been slacking anyway whatsoever. And I went home. I just looked at my running shoes, and my running shoes I'd probably been running them for about 3 years, and they were just like they're like a wedge on one side.
Right. Yeah.
So I bought a new pair of
running.
running.
So you thought it'd be rolling out.
Yeah, I just put pressure on my knee. So I bought a new pair of running shoes and never had that pain ever.
Oh right. Okay. Right.
So I had the disappointment was 85 doing a double marathon. So I always wanted, then the focus was to go and do the London Marathon, but I wanted to do the London Marathon in as much as I didn't want to go in the lottery system and be in with the masses at the back.
Right.
So there was you could qualify if you had a certain time, and the qualifying time in them days was 2:40 for the London Marathon, which is obviously quite a steep time. So I went to Glasgow and ran the Glasgow Marathon in 86, and I'd done 2:39, which gave me a qualifying time for London, and it also gave me a qualifying time that I could get an automatic entry into the New York Marathon as well.
And your training back then, was that just something I just went no one helped you, you just ran?
I just went out and ran, that was
right, okay.
I've never really... We were part of the Southern Athletic Club, but it was mainly the Southern Athletic Club was for the children more than anything. Like it was very youth orientated as opposed to senior orientated, juniors and that. So there's a small group of us there. There's myself, Mike Kelly, and a lad called Ray Kelly, and Jerry McKenna, and a girl called Maureen Noddy. I'm not sure whether Maureen was actually a member of Southern, but she sort of run with us. We would sort of go out and do the odd sort of training run together, or do a little bit of training, but basically it was just I would just go out and run on my own stuff. Like
and no, I used the word scientific. Would you go do intervals? Was that type of thing in the mindset back then? It was just go and run.
That was it. You'd read about it, you know. Right. I obviously used to read the running magazines, and you go out and do a bit, but some stuff was pretty difficult to do on your own. Like later on, we got involved with Maurice Herriot, who's an Olympic silver medal winner in steeplechase. He was from Birmingham, but he had relatives in the Isle of Man. He used to come over and train in the Isle of Man and stuff like that. And he lives over here now, Morris. So we would do hill sessions with him. They were quite good, but other than that, there was really nothing. I was no sort of coaching, or I didn't work by any book or that.
I was going to say, even to yourself there, like everyone now with the watchers and everything, and giving them instant feedback of what they're doing. Were you... Right, I need to do 6.5 minute mile sort of thing when I'm going out.
Just go and run.
I just go and run. Yeah. But every sort of training session for me was like almost like a race. You go. And also in the 80s, there was a lot of events that took place, the competitions that you were in. That there was about 3 or 4 in a week sometimes.
Yeah, so you didn't really need to train much.
So some of them events kept me going, but most of my running was just done on my own, under my own sort of. How I felt, really, how my body felt. Some days I'd go out and I'd just go and run about 17 miles, and other days I'd just do maybe a 10k or 6 mile run. But it was just, it all figured out how I was at work, how I come home from work. I was lucky at Manx Airlines because we work shifts, so I could get up in the morning, go in the morning, or finish work and go run in the afternoon, or have days off in the week and that. So I could play around with it quite a bit, and so I could go running when other people weren't available anyway. Yeah.
Do you believe you're, like, when you look at people who've got, because to train and do, a sub 240s, I'm not, do you think people are usually gifted with athletic ability and born with it, or do you think, using yourself as an example, do you think anyone could go and do that with the right mindset, the right amount of training?
I think there is a certain amount of ability that you do have. Okay. Obviously, I'd say from a younger age, I was always on the move. We were always walking all over the place. When we were in Williston, we'd walk from Williston out to Port Sodwick, and you guys, I'm thinking parents would frown on that nowadays. But I was always on the go. So I think there was obviously a certain build that I had, that an ability that I did have, and it was just maybe honing it probably really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was the London Marathon?
The
London Marathon that you qualified for?
well, I actually went and done in '86. I actually qualified for the New York Marathon as well. So I went in '86 and done the New York Marathon also.
Okay, right.
My New York Marathon was I think it was 3:03, but 3 hours and 3 minutes. But I was stuck in the back of a field, big field, you know, a group of people, and that's one of the reasons after doing that one I thought I've got to have a championship entry or qualifying entry for the London Marathon, because I just didn't want to be stuck in the back of all the masses, because you just like you'd spend for ages, and in New York one I was just zigzagging through everyone. You probably run an extra 3/4 of a mile just trying to get past people. So I was quite pleased with the New York, because it was a reasonable time considering it took me, you know, I suppose in them days once the gun went off, that was it, that was the time you got, because if you were last going over the line, you didn't get. Nowadays you've got a tag on you where you give you an actual time. You didn't have that in them days. So I was quite happy with it in some respects. So I know I would have been under 3 hours. So then the next one obviously was London. Was '87. That was my first London Marathon. And myself, Ray Kelly, another Southern Athletic Club member, Mike Gallion and Maureen Noddy, we blagged. I blagged some airline tickets. Myself and Mike Gallion, we work for Manx Airlines anyway, so I blagged some tickets from the boss Terry Lydiard for Maureen and Ray to come along, and we had a football team at the time, Manx Airlines, so we ran in the green and white striped shirts of the football team. So we went down for that, and I think we went down on the Friday, because we had the Friday, and I remember we went to Pizza Land it was, and we had this, like, I don't know, pasta or pizza at the time, but then they used to have this all day salad thing, you know, you could help yourself and all that. So us lads being pigs, well, me being a pig, I sort of overloaded on that. And I think there must have been something dodgy in it, because the next day I just had food poisoning. I had the shakes, I had the runs, I was sick, and we went over to Battersea Park just to have a look at Battersea Park and the track there. And I remember luckily it was a sunny day, just lying in the sun shivering. And I was in with two minds. The others were okay, and I was in two minds whether obviously to do, but you don't do all that running and all that work and go down there not to run it. So I ran it, but I probably shouldn't have done it, because I think that was over 3 hours. That was three. I think we about 3:03. I think it was on that one. But the worst part of it was my mate Ray Kelly. He passed me going into Tower Bridge for the before the second. You go under Tower. You go through coming through the cobbles. It was going towards Tower Bridge. You go over it when you're going out in the first lap, and then you come under it when coming back. And the buggy passed me coming in on the cobbles, and he slapped me on the backside. And, and he beat me. He beat me by about. He was inside, but I just couldn't catch him. He actually beat me by. No, I think it was a 3:11, and he was about 3:07. It was, so it was only about 4 seconds he beat me. And I've never been able to live that down with him, you know, since then. So that was a valid
excuse though if you have food poisoning.
Yeah. That was a real big disappointment. But after that, they improved greatly after that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Just curiosity, how many entries were in the back? And
I think there's about 25,000.
Because how many are doing it now? I know it's a huge event sort of thing. Are they still capping those numbers?
I'm not really too sure, because I haven't sort of followed it that closely the last few years. You see. Basically, because I don't have a television, so I don't get.
Do you not have a TV?
No. I haven't had a TV for a long time.
Oh, right, okay.
But so I've
TV sort of license people aren't listening. It's not a problem if you have one. I can lend you £120 to pay for.
No, it's not that. I just actually my television went ping once, and I thought I'm not buying a license now to get another one.
Just
so
don't you watch it.
I keep getting these grotty letters from this TV licensing people, they're quite demanding sometimes. I really haven't bothered. I've just, nowadays you can catch up stuff on your laptop anyway. But that wasn't my thing. So
running wise, what was? I presume you came back after London. Training, continued training hard and.
87 and then 88. 88. I knew in 88 I ran. There's a 50k race ran around the perimeter track of the. Well, it wasn't the NSC then. It was just like football pitches, and it wasn't a very good perimeter track. It used to flood all the time. I remember the 50k race there.
And was that hardcore or grass?
That was on. It was like a bit tarmacy. I think.
Okay, tarmac.
Yeah. But it was
it's not what we see
chipping
today.
up and there's potholes. And no, it's not what it is now. I do remember running a 50k race there, getting up to the marathon standard, up to the marathon distance, and stopping. And not doing the 50k because I had to go and play football later on in the afternoon for Colby. So I think I had a pretty good time in that when my time was good, and then I went off in it was 88. We got obviously a qualifying time for London because I think you could have your qualifying time twice, but there's a couple of other marathons I ran in. I had some of them wrote down here, but I won't go to it. 88, and I ran 2:30. I think it's 2:32 in London in 88, and then that set me up for 89. And
I mean, just to go back to that time, like world record wise, what would they be around? 10, 15, 2 minute 10, 2 minute 15?
I think it was 2:10.
Not many miles away, is it?
I know it wasn't. Yeah. And it was. We also. There was qualifying times for Commonwealth Games as well, and the Commonwealth Games was always 2:25. It used to be at that time. But that was something I was going to try to attempt later on. That wasn't sort of in my radar at that point.
Anything you thought you could achieve if you kept going the way you were?
I went on. I done my best years of running really was probably about 91, 92, 93, 94. Because in 90, 88. That's when I done the 2:32 and thing. Then I went back in 89. I can't remember what I had at the time in 89 in London, but that gave me a time to go to the Island Games, because the Island Games in 1989 was in the Faroe Islands. But instead of being like a half marathon like it had been in the previous ones, like in 85 in the Isle of Man and 87, was it in Guernsey in 87, or was it Jersey? Anyway, I didn't go to it because I didn't get a qualifying time for the half marathon. But the qualifiers for the Island Games, they decided the Faroe Islands who wanted to put a marathon on, and the qualifying time would be the two fastest marathon runners prior to a certain date.
Okay.
So obviously my time, I think was, I think I'd probably done about 2:32 again in the London that year. And my mate Ray Kelly, he ran the same year and he'd done 2:47. So eventually we got to go to the Island Games and run the marathon. The marathon was the very last leg there. It was one heck of a course. It was like running up a big fjord and coming back down again. It was really, really windy, and there's a good field there. But I was actually on the home run coming in. I was lying fourth at the time, so I was just off the medal position. And I remember coming into the very, very finish, and Jeff Cannell was there, and I could hear Jeff Cannell saying, "And here he is," and Ray Kelly's had a tremendous race. I'm thinking, Ray, Jeff, you must know it's Robbie, you know. And as I was coming in, I could just hear Jeff Cannell saying all this, and I said, well, because I used to do motorcycle with him, and I've known him well. And I was saying, he was just saying, and Ray Kelly has had a tremendous run. And as I crossed the line, about 2 seconds later, Ray Kelly come along and slapped me on the back. And we'd seen there's a point in the race where you went up to a turning point and came back again. And that was probably from that turning point, you probably had about 3 or 4 miles just to come back in. And Ray was right down the field at that point, but he obviously had a really good run in on that. And he sort of clocked me in the distance, and he was trying to sneak up on me once again. But luckily, I just kept ahead of him. So we actually won the team gold medal that year.
Okay.
So that was really cool.
Okay. And did you finish fourth in the end, did you?
I finished fourth, he finished fifth, and there's only 2 to count in it. Although they did have teams of 3, but it was only the first 2 to count in it. So we actually got a gold medal out of that, so that was quite cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
What time was that? Appreciate it.
Well,
Perhaps
actually,
not a speed course.
It wasn't too bad. I think it was about 2:30, 2:37 or something like that. And then,
so obviously the standard generally within I look at the Island Games now. The standard's so hard across all the sports, but even back then to to come forth and do that quick time. Obviously, there's a good feel there.
Yeah. No, there was in I'd say from about 88 to about 95, there was a really good core of middle distance and long distance runners on the Isle of Man. It was a fantastic group, actually, to tell you the truth. And we'd be competing against each other in the summertime. There'd be so many different races going on, which we don't have anymore. We used to have the Douglas to Castletown. We used to have a Peel to Castletown. We used to do a Castletown back to Peel at times. We had one called the Boundary Stroll. We had the Peel to Douglas, which is a classic race, you know. And all these races have disappeared now.
Is
but
that just due to participation or
no, road safety more than anything, just health and
right,
safety more than anything. You know, the roads, you know, you run on main roads, and it was, even them days, it wasn't too bad. The traffic wasn't too bad on the road, like, but there's no way you could sort of hold them now, you know. So in them sort of years, you could go into some of the races and obviously the people in them days when I was sort of getting into running was like, so the main people you were chasing was Steve Kelly, and then there's a guy called Dave Newton, and then there's another lad called Colin Halsall. They were the sort of the seniors off the run at the time, and you were sort of like running in their wake a little bit. And Steve Kelly he's another guy with a phenomenal history as well. He would always, he'd set off and like, so the Peel to Douglas race, and you'd all be running in a group, and then Steve would be just chatting away to everyone, and he gets a bit of a mile and he thinks, all right, I've had enough now, and just go off and leave everyone. So we spent quite a number of years sort of chasing him, and then eventually catching Steve up and then passing him, because he'd been in the game a lot longer than what I had. He's obviously been going since he was about 11 or something like that, too. Whereas I came into the running, still felt it's young, but maybe not quite that young really. I was well into my late 20s anyway before I was doing it. So he'd probably, his body been hammered quite a lot before then. So in them years, it was a terrific amount of races going on, a terrific amount of runners. You had like Steve Kelly's and Dave Newton, I said, and Colin Halsall. Then you'd go into someone you said you spoke to there before, Andy Fox, Chris Quine, Johnny Epivani. There's a guy called Robbie Callister, who's no longer around. A guy called Kevin Elmondson, Alan Gage, who was a bit of a cyclist as well. Then Ray Cox, who's now the chairman of the Parish Walk. There's a whole gang of lads there, and any one of them races that you lined up on, you know, anyone could have sort of won the time.
You're pushing yourself on then as well, aren't you?
Two Clark brothers, Paul Clark and Graham Clark, you know, they were two really good runners as well.
I think I remember Paul. I went to the games in '95, and I think he was there doing the half or the marathon.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the first events on in Jersey, and then he had a week holiday after that. So early '90s then carried on running after the games in '89. Yeah,
well, it was just all the running. Then I got into everything. I was doing like fell running, I was doing the mountain marathon, I was doing most of the fell races that were going on there. Then I got involved with there's another classic event which took place. I ran it in '86 actually. The first one was a TT40, which is running around the TT course. So I ran that in '86, and I think I finished 5th in '86. And then I ran it again in 1990, and I finished 2nd in 1990. And then I don't know if they didn't hold it in 91. I'm not too sure why, but I didn't do 91. Then 92, I ran it in 92, and I won it.
Right.
And I was the first Manx person to win it.
Oh, I've never heard of it actually.
Yeah.
Right.
It started.
So roads closed or not?
No, it was on open roads. Actually, that's another reason why it's gone as well. Originally, it started. It's the last one that I ran. It started at the NSC, and what you did, you obviously went onto the TT course, and you ran all the TT course all the way till you come to Governor's Bridge, and then you bared left and went down Blackberry Lane, Summerhill, along the promenade, and then back to the NSC to finish there.
Right,
so that gave it the 40 miles.
Right.
But it used to start. We started on the promenade. It used to start at there used to be an old mine there at one time.
Oh, right, okay.
That's where the Parish Walk finish used to be. There's an old one of them floating ones with the big spikes on it. That
I do remember that. Yeah.
And there's one in Peel at one point. It was one of the ones that used to float around the water, and if ships hit it, they got blown up. Well, that was where the Parish Walk sort of finished all the time. And that's where the TT40 started in the early days and finished there as well.
Right.
So I
Time would you run that?
my best time was 4 hours 22 minutes as it was. So it's not too bad. Really. Yeah. But
be sort of great kind of iconic event, wouldn't it? Where you can just shut the roads for a day and run.
No, it was then it had a big history as well. It went back a long time. Yeah. But I was the only Manxman to win it anyway, and they don't hold it anymore now. So hopefully I keep that record. Yeah.
Let's not try and resurrect it now.
No. Yeah. And then obviously the Isle of Man Marathon. Originally, the first Isle of Man Marathon I'd done was 88, which is down at the. It started at Ronshaw Aircraft Social Club there, and used to do 4 laps of the Sid Quirk course, which is the Sid Quirk's obviously half marathon. So that's sort of like up through Ballasalla, past Russian Abbey, and then tags on to the Southern Hundred course going the opposite way around. Yeah. So you come back into Castletown the opposite way along the Southern Hundred course straight, and then back up past the airport. So 4 laps of that. So I actually finished second that, but as an English guy, won it. So I won my first marathon championship that year in '88.
Right, okay.
Then they moved it up to Ramsey then, which was the course that we went around with Christian on this penultimate marathon, the 18th marathon. Yeah. So they started that in 90. So I ran that in 90. So I actually won 1990. I won 91, 92, 93, and 94.
Right.
So I won that 5 years on the trot. The 5th year, I finished second. There was a guy come over from England, and I think he set the record then on that course. I think he was 2:29. He might have been on that course. I think I've had 2:32 on that course.
Right.
And then after that, I just got involved with just other various marathons like Liverpool Marathon. I ran in Lisbon twice, obviously New York once, Iceland once, Copenhagen twice. The Isle of Man Marathon, I think I've done 9 Isle of Man marathons. So I've won 9 championships as well.
Do you know your best ever marathon time?
Yeah, London 1993, it was 2 hours 28:59, so I rounded down to 2:28.
We'll go with that.
It sounds better. Yeah, so at one time I had the 3rd best Manx marathon, fastest Manxman. Then Ollie Lockley came along, and God, who's the other one that came along then? Oh, I should remember it. Oh dear. Anyway, I'm sorry, I apologise for that. So there is someone else. Keith Gerard. Right.
Oh, right, yeah.
Sorry, Keith. So they obviously pushed me back another 2 places, but I was quite happy with that, really, because most of the other ones were more established club runners and went through sort of coaching sort of phase. As I told you before, I just ran off my own sort of wit really, yeah.
And out of those places you mentioned there of doing your marathons, favourite one, as in favourite place to run, course and city? I know you're not probably trying to take in the scenery too much while you're darting through everyone, but is there one way
I suppose New York was quite an eye-opener, because I think the masses of people that are out watching it, and the fact that you could run through all these boroughs of New York one day, and the next day you try to go in there, you could take your life in your own hands. But there's other ones. I mean, I enjoyed Iceland as well. Iceland was a nice one to go and run in, and Lisbon as well. They're all sort of pretty special, really. Yeah.
And everything self-funded.
Yeah, they were. I was actually quite lucky, really, because with working for Manx Airlines, I used to get concessionary travel, and the spin-off for that as well was, which we started in 1989. There used to be, we found out there's an annual airline road running race, which is a 10k and a 5k race, which took a certain airline would sponsor it, and then they would hold it in either their country or their nearest corporate headquarters. So the first one we went to was sponsored by Lufthansa, and we ran in Hamburg, and then we went off to after that we went off to The other ones, we went off to Cancun in Mexico because Mexicana had it. We went off to San Francisco.
So just for employees of airlines then?
Yeah. And there were supporters could come along as well and enter it, but basically it was pretty competitive actually. Yeah. There's a Mexican guy who used to sort of mop up, and he's doing like 30-minute 10Ks. Right. So you'd run a 10K. And then you'd have a break, and then there's a 5K race. So we would just do both of them. We were Durban, South Africa, we ran in, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Brussels, and luckily in Brussels and Dublin, we also went to Dublin with Aer Lingus, and I was working for the airline. Well, the one in Dublin, the boss allowed us a 360 aircraft to fly a whole lot of staff over to compete in it, which is really, really good. And then the other one, we got staff could travel via our network to Brussels as well, so we had quite a lot of staff that competed in that. But I sort of held my own up in them races pretty well too. I'd get placed in my age category anyway. At the time, so I've got quite a few of them trophies at home.
One of the things I did find, I was saying there wasn't much on the internet, which isn't surprising now you mention everything got TV. But is whether the record still stands? You got the Vets over 35 half marathon record. That's what it said on. I appreciate the website might be long out of date. Yeah. Are you aware of that?
Not really. I'm not really aware of most of the records at all.
It was 1:10 for a half marathon.
Yeah, that was
91 or 93. I haven't written it down, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I think it was. It might have been for 91 because when we went to the Island Games in Ireland, I was at the NSC, the perimeter track then. I think it was a Manx Airlines sponsored event where they used to bring sort of national runners over and walkers over. I think Alan Gage has pipped me by about 3 or 4 seconds in that one. Yeah. But that I knew I'd done 70 minutes and a few whatever the seconds were in that.
Yeah. I haven't written that down. So you said you carried on running through sort of the early 90s. Did you run and then come to an end at some point in the 90s? Or have you did that carry on even up into the sort of Parish Walk years?
Well, what I did is 95 and then rolled into 96. Well, unfortunately, my dad was at the end of 95. My dad was diagnosed with cancer then in 95. So 96 was a bit of a shit year because he spent about 9 months sort of really in a bad way trying to get treatment for it and stuff like that. So I sort of lost a little bit of momentum. So from 97, 98, I was still doing some 10Ks and stuff like that, but I'd sort of like come off the scene a little bit in some respects. So I'd sort of probably picked it back up again in 2000 because I'd set myself with Millennium Year coming up. I set myself a bucket list of things to do, and one of them was in 2000 the Isle of Man Vets Club had the Vets Marathon Championship on the Isle of Man. They were the host club for it. Normally it's different clubs throughout the UK hold it. So I set my mind on having a run in that because I fancied being a British champion, for want of a better word. And I thought I'd probably have a fairly decent chance at it, and I've just got my act together again. So I obviously focused on my running there. And the other thing I focused on what I wanted to do was also do the Parish Walk. So my first Parish Walk was in 2000 as well. So
what time were you with the Vets Champs?
The Vets Champs were August, and the Parish Walk was obviously in its normal place in June. So
should be yesterday, shouldn't it? I mean, we're sat here now on the 21st.
Yeah. It should have been. Yeah. Would have been. Everyone would be hobbling around now.
Yeah. You wouldn't be sat here. Yeah.
And also within that year as well, I set myself another challenge, which was related to my dad really. was there's a pilgrimage walk across Spain. It's about 500 miles across Spain. It's the Camino de Santiago. So I set my challenge that I wanted to go and walk that, but I wasn't walking what was a recognised 500 distance. I started a little bit further in a place called Pamplona, where they run the bulls, and walked to Santiago. And it was, I don't think the actual distance was a challenge to me. I just sort of, it is a pilgrimage walk and people just doing it, at their own pace and that. And I wasn't really doing it for sporting effort or anything. The main thing was just some sort of dedication to a father. But I knew I only had a certain amount of time, which I could do it in 2 weeks. I could have off for work, so I sort of looked at the schedules that you had for it, and I thought, well, for every walking day that's in the schedule, it's a 32 walking day schedule. I would just double them up and sort of halve the days, so I could get it done in time. And that was the momentum to put me under a little bit more pressure then, because I knew that I could walk it. It's just that whether I could walk them double blocks together.
Right.
And I did do it, and I finished okay, and my feet were a bit sore and all that, but it was just an amazing thing to go and do, to walk back-to-back days all the time. I think I was 16 days doing it.
Right. How many miles each day, or K?
Well, they varied really. They varied between it was probably about 20 miles, and then I think there was a couple of days where I put in a couple of 30-mile days as well. But obviously you've got the train that you're going over, and the weather and stuff like that, and you're carrying everything.
I was going to say self-support as well.
Yeah, you've got everything, all the clothing, and pick up water and food, and just stick in your rucksack. And once you start putting a rucksack on your back, and it just puts all that pressure through your feet just, they feel pretty bad. So I went off in, it was April time to do that. So I'd done that, came back. Then obviously you had the parish walks to go and do. So I'd done the parish walk, but I'll be having a little chat about it before there. 2001, I always felt that with mobile running and that I'd never accomplished anything till I finished the parish walk. So that was my main focus, 2000, finished the parish walk. And I went down to the parish walk. I actually drove down in my car, parked it over by the casino somewhere. We came along with the mate of mine. Started in the Villamarina Gardens, and I was literally the last one out in Villamarina Gardens.
Too busy gossiping in the gardens.
Well, I was also with my friend that I'd come down with. He was going to walk to Peel, and then he was going to get my kit bag, which was left with his girlfriend, and she was going to pick him up, and they were going to bring it out to me. So I walked with him for a little bit. Then I decided to push on. I sort of made my way through the field, and I think when I come into Peel, I was probably in about 20th position, clocking in through Peel. And then after that, I was on the road. And as I left Peel, I was getting further and further away from Peel. And I was just waiting for my bag and my food and stuff like that to come up. Because honestly, I don't think in them days, and I hope Ray Cox is not listening at the moment, I'm positive in them days it wasn't that you had to have a compulsory supporter. I think it came in later after that. So there's a good lady called Gladys Callow who kept me going. She kept me fed in the sandwiches for quite a bit. Then there was another couple of guys, a supporter of the guy that was behind me, Boyd Millen, his name was, the walker, and his supporter, he kept an eye on me. So he kept an eye on me, and I just blagged my food off that. So in the end, I ended up getting all the way around, and I finished in 5th place. And then after that, I just it wasn't too bad. Really. I mean to say, if I'd as I discussed before, if I'd have done it properly, which was what my focus was the following year, was to be A, on the start line, and B, to have proper backup, then I knew I'd be in a chance of having a good walk.
Can I just ask, though, you said you didn't feel like you've accomplished anything until you did your parish walk. Why is that? Because we've just spent 50 minutes going through how much you've achieved up to that point, so I'm just interested to know why you think that.
The reason, because I was surrounded by so many people that had done the parish walk, with the Castagnell drinkers getting involved with it. They were all sucking other people in, they're roping people in to do crazy things like obviously the parish walk and the mountain marathon, Manx mountain marathon, and Tim Bath racing, pushing beds and stuff like that. But there's quite a lot of guys within the Castagnell drinkers who'd actually successfully finished the parish walk, and they weren't athletes by any means. And I just thought, well, I've got to be able to do that, because I can't raise my head up above I could name these characters, but I'll be doing them a disservice, because some of the way that I know one guy who walked all the way around. He had a pint in every pub, and there was a lot more pubs in them days, and he walked all the way around. So I just felt that I really had to do the parish walk, and once I'd done that, I felt that I could have accomplished a lot. I could accomplish stuff. Yeah. So I finished obviously in 2000, and then the thing was, then I knew I could go better than 5th place in 2000. So 2001, I was focused on that. I'd done a lot more training for it. I'd done a lot more walking training, but I'd also been doing a lot more running. I'd ran the 2001 London Marathon that year as well also. So I came off some sort of quite good training really. So I just focused on it, and I was...
Just before we jump into 01 then, you mentioned the Vets Champs on the Isle of Man in 2000. How did that end up?
Oh yeah, well, I finished second in the race, but the guy who won it was a junior, and he wasn't in the Vets. He wasn't entered in the Vets competition, so I was the first vet to win that. Right. So I was 45 at the time, so I won the Vets. Right. I was 45 vet winner as opposed to 40. So I got one over the 40-year-old guys. So I got my British Championship, which is quite nice to have. Well, to say that you had it anyway, put it that way. But so that was...
It's a lot accomplished in that, that year. You talk about the long walk, the Parish.
But you don't... At the time, and certainly now when you guys sort of ask me to come and think, and I'm thinking, well, I'll just look back on some of the stuff I did do, you just don't realise what you have done until you do start looking back a little bit. Because once I've sort of been a person, I just close the door on that one and just move on to the next one, really. So with
01 Parish.
Yeah, that was my main focus, and I knew that if I walked as well as I could do, I knew I could sort of be on the shout of winning it.
So you mentioned before we came on air, you kind of used the word power walker. Is that rather than the kind of race walking that people perhaps see a bit more now? That was something you just... Was that something you picked up from the walk the year before, where you had to do back-to-back walks?
Maybe, probably, yeah. It's just, I don't know, it's the most comfortable way for me to walk, really. I can't really, I was probably too old in order to get into the supple hips and that sort of stuff.
Those tight ITBs.
Yeah, I was too stiff in the back and stuff like that. So for me, it was, and I never realised how much I swung my arms until it was a couple of years later on when the TV crew come over and filmed the Parish Walk for a few years. That's when I realised how much I was swinging my arms and what an unorthodox sort of style I do have. And then since then there's been instances where I'm walking past vehicles, I've sort of cleared them, but next minute my hand clacks a wing mirror and it seems miles away from me. But I have got probably an orthodox style, but it suits me and it's done me okay.
Yeah, too right. Yeah,
I know there's a lot of people who keep shouting at me to get my arms raised and stuff like that, but I just can't get into it doing that sort of way. Right. So I obviously worked at it, and in 2001 I took it fairly easy to start, and I remember there's about 3 or 4 people ahead of me. Dave Griffiths was one of them. There's a couple other, Marie Latham was another one, just ahead of me going into Russian, and I sort of pegged them back, and at the top of Slock I was in the lead at that point, and that was it. Then after Slock I just opened up.
And that previous year and I suppose all the years, have you ever, fueling, drinking, always been fine, has it? Have you ever really does that go off instinct again, the support and making sure you have enough?
It's strange really, because people keep asking me, what sort of food intake do you have and all that, and to be honest, I've got nothing really sorted out in any way whatsoever. Just what it feels like on the day, really. You probably tend to have more stuff in your vehicle than you really, really need. You go down to the shop the day before and you just buy tons of stuff, and half the stuff you got in there you don't particularly fancy anyway. But obviously the main thing is you have got to keep your food intake up, and it's stuff that's probably easy to digest or get into your mouth. There's a phase for taking baby food for a long number of years as well, because they come in like sachets already, so it's just getting used to feeling of it in your mouth, and then after that, and then swallowing it. But yeah, I use that and stuff like rice pudding and stuff that's been blended a little bit more. It's easy to intake it. And obviously your water and hydration is a major sort of thing to keep up to, because you just don't realise how much water you lose on the event. And we've had some really, really hot days. So
so those year on years, were they like those first couple of years just, I suppose you look back now, it's such a legacy that you've left there. Were you conscious of continuing to win each year and build that
Yeah, well, but once I got that first one under my belt, and then I felt confident for 2002, and I obviously did win 2002, and I sort of improved on my time quite dramatically, really, yeah. Because I think I was my first time in 2000 was 18:45, I think 18 hours 45 minutes, and then I came down to just under the first year I won it. I could see the clock ticking. It was at 16 hours 59, and I just scraped in under the 17-hour mark, which is obviously it's nice to be 16 hours as opposed to 17 hours and 1 second. Yeah. So I got in under 16 hours, under 17 hours on that, and then I think the following year I dropped it back even more, then to 16:35 in 2002. And then 2003, I lost out in 2003, so that made me more determined in 2004 then.
And in those 01, 02 years, were you also running outside of doing a walk?
Yeah, I was doing quite a bit. I was doing crossover bits of both, but then I think it was probably about 2000. Well, it wasn't actually 2004 that I knuckled down. I was still running then because 2004 I also ran my last marathon on the Isle of Man 2004. That wasn't until Christian Varley came along. That was, yeah.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
Because in 2004 I also had one more go at running the marathon, and well, it was obviously I walked I'd done the Parish Walk. I finished the Parish Walk in 2004. I won it, and then obviously in August I'd done the ran the marathon, and Ian Gale he'd won it the previous year, and he was hot favourite. Or he'd won the 20 miles a couple of months earlier, and Ian was in top form, and he was probably a favourite to win it, really, yeah. So I trailed Ian for about the first lap, and then coming in the second lap up Bride Hill again the second time, I just passed him going up the hill, kept ahead of him, so I won it. So that was my last sort of win on that. So I won that, and then also during the 2000s, 2002 was the first running of the west coast of the end-to-end. So in 2002 I won the end-to-end. Right. In 2002.
And that's the course we all still know today.
Straight down, down past Derby, round the Cronk, through Kirkmichael, then Parish Walk course, virtually back to Russian Church, and then up over the How then after that, yeah. So the Vets Club resurrected that on the West Coast course because obviously the traffic was a lot easier than the other coast. 2002, so I won 2002 on that, 2003 and 2004. So in 2004 I achieved winning the Parish Walk, the marathon, and the end-to-end. Wow. Yeah. So that's
triple crown.
Yeah, in some respects, yeah. So I was quite pleased with that one as well. Yeah. And also then I think I might be wrong, but I'm sure I won the first 6 end-to-ends on the West Coast consecutively. Yeah, right. So and so I think I had was it 90, 91, 92, 93, 94. So I had 5 consecutive wins on the marathon. And I've had 5 wins in the Parish Walk, but I lost out on consecutive ones in 2003 because I was on a run for. I would have won 2003, which I didn't. I would have had 3, but then I won 2004. Yeah. But that's by the by. You just can't go with that. So obviously 2004 I won the Parish, and then come back in 2005. Yeah. And then 2005 we got very close that year to the all-time record of Derek Harrison's, which is 2 hours and 25 minutes. No, 2 hours. 20 minutes, sorry. I was 2:25. So 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think, Derek's time. So 2006, by that time we had a little group of walkers going. We called ourselves the Ballagher Breakfast Club. Right. In it was myself, Robbie Callister, who's been the ladies winner. Sean Hans was in it, Eamon Harkin, Andrew Titley. There's a good group of us, and that year we trained really, really hard. And obviously it showed up because every one of us PB'd that year, and then Sean on the best PB because he beat the record and he knocked nearly half an hour off the record, I think it was. So, and I obviously beat Derek's time as well. But unfortunately,
you remember what it was? What time you did?
My best, I think it's 15:16. and I think it's 3 seconds. It is,
Right.
So that was probably a bit of icing on the cake, really. And I was glad. It was a cracking race. I do remember having a knee problem. My knee suddenly hurt. It was on the inside of the knees. It felt like bone and bone rubbing. I seriously felt like stopping at Lazaire, but then there was a couple of people that were out supporting me, and I thought, well, I can't stop while I'm there. And then they had the TV people at Sky were over filming that year as well, and they had the TV camera in a van. And the van must have done about a mile just in front of me and made me walk all the way out to Mackle. And I thought, I can't stop now because, that's... So I just put the back of my mind and kept on going. So, because I had the troubles, I had a good walk. But Sean's was a phenomenal walk that year.
Did he race walk it, if that's the right term?
Well, Sean just got a really good start. He practiced on his race walking technique, but he can go into the power walking as well when he comes to the hills, and drop his arms a little bit more and just power walk a bit more up the hills. But I think of anyone, Sean's had the best style for doing the Parish Walk. I'm sure he could have even brought the time down lower himself. Unfortunately, he suffered from a groin injury and it dogged him for a number of years, and in 2006 he also won the 100-mile walk here in the Isle of Man. We had a 100-mile walk around the NSC, and he won that, but he ended up going to hospital, and I think that sort of knocked him back a little bit as well. So, and he's never really bounced back from that, unfortunately, because he had the ability, because in 2008 he had another go at it, and I think he was about 10 minutes ahead of his own record in 2008, but then I think he pulled up with Andreas or something like that. His groin had gone on him again, so he's never come back from that, unfortunately.
So your last year of winning was 07?
It was 07, and that was the year, because obviously Sean had won 2006, and we were walking together again in 2007, and we were walking together, and I was expecting him at some point, he's just going to go off like he done last time in 2006. He left me at the top on Dolby Mountain. He just went off and left me at Dolby Mountain at that point in 2006, and we're heading towards Russian Church and up the Slough, and I thought up Ballaclowie, and I thought he's going to pull away at some point here, and we got to the top of Ballaclowie where Tom the Dippers is, and he just said to me, I'm stopping, Robbie. I just said, what do you mean? He said, I'm stopping. He said, my legs are cramping up. So I just said, well, let's just walk it off a little bit then. And he said, no. I said, there's no way I can carry on. So he stopped, and that was a big shock to me, because he had no signs. He didn't have any signs of stress on him at all or anything like that. He looked to be walking his normal self. So Sean pulled off the track at that point. So I just kept on walking. So that was my last win.
How much do you think the parish is in like the mental battle?
70% it is. Yeah.
Because you talk about Sean, then you don't, obviously through his head. Oh, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's talking himself out of it, but by the time he's come to the point of saying I'm stopping, he's obviously been thinking about it for X period of time before that. So that because it's such a mind game when that decision.
Yeah, and made. Obviously because I've been talking to him as we were walking out there, and he's obviously thinking, well, I'm Robbie must be walking. He's looking good. He's not like that. So it's hard to really tell, and it's a funny. It is a really funny event. It is a mental one, and the least little thing can either upset you and send you off the rails completely. So you just got to put everything to the back of your mind.
And to throw it to the other side of it, whether you want to get into the sportsmanship side of it, do you ever see people play that sort of game of, like you're saying, they're walking with your thing in, and suddenly they're putting a little kick into your spot, or talking off, you're really tired, and the next minute up the next hill they're shooting off,
there's quite a bit of that going on. There's quite a bit of sort of cat and mouse. Also there's a bit of cat and mouse within the supporters as well, because when you're out on the road for a long time and you're fairly, virtually where everyone is because of the way the support cars are coming up there, and the support cars have got the numbers in the cars, or at least some of them do, or some of them hide their number a little bit, but you get to know which ones, and therefore you can get an idea of if someone's catching you without even being told that where the support cars are. But then you can play mind games with your support cars. Well, you can either hold your support car back. I'm giving people tips about that. You can either hold your support car back longer, so the person thinks, oh well, they're not catching on me, you know, I must be pulling away. And the next minute, then you start pushing the support car up quicker and quicker and quicker all the time. And you can put people mentally pressure in there. And there's other things where even when you walk and you know, and you're line-sighted person, there's certain places when you get to a corner, you sort of like get around the corner and just dip into the hedge a little bit and keep in as tight as you can do. I've done that in lots of marathon runs as well, But they're all doing it, you know, and there's mind games going on with everyone, really. People talking at you all the time, and
it's an interesting. A lot of our podcasts we talk about the mind, and I think when I look at sports online, I think the Parish is such a mind game. I haven't done it myself. And I was saying before, I'm stubborn and got around, and I wasn't particularly fit at the time, but it was all about just the mind, really. Most of it was about the mind.
I do believe anyone can finish the Parish Walk. They obviously have to put a little bit of training into it, but it's a mental fitness, you know. If you're strong enough, mentally you'll get yourself around there. And I've seen a lot of massive effort at the back of the event. In between sort of like 2015 to about 2017, I spent walking at the back with other people. There's a South African friend of mine. He came over after he came over in 2013, finished it, and that was his epiphany in sporting career. And he played really good standard of cricket in South Africa and football, and so much so he lives, breathes the Parish Walk. In 2014, he was diagnosed with bowel cancer, so he had a major operation, and he had problems. He'd sort of severed loads of nerves below, so he'd lost a lot of feeling below, and obviously he couldn't control himself below. So he, just in talking to him, because he came over in 2014 to support the South Africans that came over, because there used to be quite a few of them coming over. So he came over, and obviously I was chatting to him, and he said he wanted to do the Parish Walk again next year. He couldn't do it this year because obviously he's not well enough. So I said to him, well, if you get well, we'll have a celebrate your lap next year. So he did. So we walked around the Parish Walk with him, and got him round. And to be honest, he overcooked it before he even got to the slock. He unfortunately, I let him find his own pace to start off with, and he'd had a talking clock on his arm, like Strava or whatever it was, and it was telling him his speed and stuff like that. He'd obviously had it programmed, and he was going way too fast. And so by the time I caught up with him, sort of holding him back and asked him, well, really told him not to listen to what he's got on his arm. He'd cramped up really, really badly, so it was a case of then just getting him through, and he got himself around, and so he had to dig deep himself to go and do that, like. But I've seen him dig deep, but during that walk with him, because we were like, that's my longest Parish Walk I've ever had. I've seen places in the daylight that I never see places in the daylight, and places dark that I don't see in the dark on the Parish Walk. So during that day, because you're to and fro with all the other people, there's some massive efforts going in, People you can see were in tremendous trouble with their feet. People with their backs, when the back's going, you start leaning over, but just sticking with it.
Did you ever have any major foot problems or anything? Kind of the story people tell, or that you see is Dudley Butt's foot.
Oh yeah, well, I have had that. I had one. We went to in 2017. We went to Robben Island to walk a 100-mile walk on Robben Island, the South African Centurion Walk, and there's a part of the course which is like. It's like concrete, but they put chippings in it as well, so it's got a hell of a camber, and my feet were blistering up really, really bad. And then once I just slid on that, and my shoe gripped, and my foot went on the inside, and it just sort of peeled all the skin back. So we spent the next 2 days after that event just hobbling around Cape Town. But no, there's you always have
blisters and bits of
stuff.
Yeah,
and you always everyone has a little bit of doubt in their minds at times. That even last year's one with Richard and Liam. They were going battling out at the front, and it was a really, really hot day. Richard stopped. I think was it just after Lazaire, but to be honest, maybe if Richard had kept going a little bit longer, Liam might have pulled out, because I think they were both possibly just on the edge at that point, because they were pushing each other quite hard, and it just needs one person to fall out, and then obviously Liam then was under no pressure for a bit, because I think the French guy that was over, he was probably about 20 minutes behind Liam at that point, so gave him a breathing space. But it's just least little thing can sort of push you over. Do
you know the years you walk it now, and well, maybe the first question is, I presume you're competitive by nature. That's
yeah.
So do you find now, you're obviously still at the front end, but not. I don't know whether you feel you could ever win it again. I don't know whether that's even on your radar. Is it? Is that something you think about now?
Well, my main focus was the Parish Walk this year, actually.
Yeah, right, okay.
And I'd like last year, because obviously I dilly-dallied around working with other people for a while, and then 2018 I decided to sort of like just have more of a competitive walk again, but I broke my collarbone 2 weeks before the event, so. Right. I finished 7th over that, so I was in that one. So I was quite happy with that.
A broken collarbone.
Yeah. Right. Well, it was sort of knitted together a little bit. I couldn't swing my arm properly, but I could swing it enough. So then I thought, well, 2019, because 2017, no, 2018 that was, and then 2019 I finished 3rd like last year. So I had a good walk last year.
I just wonder, having won it all the time or for a number of periods of time, is 3rd satisfactory enough for your mind? I don't know how. Yeah, it was. Sometimes I think like, I can't win it now. Screw it. I'm off to do something else.
It was satisfactory for me. I was pleased with that, because in 2009 and 10 it was like a bit of a wilderness years. I was overdosed with the whole thing, the training and putting the hours in for it and all that. And to be honest, my body was pretty wrecked, I think, because in 2010 I'd also gone off and walked 500 miles across the Camino. 2011 I'd walked even longer across the Camino.
Yeah, so 11 you won the Cape Town event as well. That's something I did find on the internet.
Yeah, I got invited out because to be honest, I was actually at the point of packing it in 2011, because I'd gone off to I'd walked the Camino in 2010. I'd walked a different route. It was all the northern coast of Spain. And then when I came into Santiago, I then walked another 3 days to a place called Finisterre, which is the end of the world as in medieval times. Right. And then walked another 1 day up to a place called Muxia. So I spent 27 days walking non-stop to do it was about 560 miles, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
But I paid for it in as much as then when I got back, especially when I got back to London and I was trying to cross the road, I had to normally just sort of skip across the road in between the traffic. I had to make sure there was a gap, because I couldn't actually run across the road. Right. I was sort of like hobbling across the road because my Achilles were pretty knackered and stuff like that. So I was going to actually pack it in around about 2010 leading into 2011. Then I was asked I was doing some work for a South African guy, and who I got to know really, really well now. And I expected him to come up and just check my work when he came, because he was going to move over to the Isle of Man here. And I was doing some work on his house, and I expected him to come over and just check my work. And he came up to me and he said, "Hi, Robbie." He said, "Hello, Robbie. Tell me how you're doing the Parish Walk this year." And I thought it was a random thing to really ask me. He wasn't bothered about the work I'd done or anything like that. He said, "Because if you are, I'm bringing some people over from South Africa. I just want to know if you'll come down and maybe just give them a talk and let them know what it's all about and stuff like that." So I said I would do. And at that point, I was going to go off then and walk the Camino again in 2011. And I went for a couple of short walks with him before I went off there. And then when I came back, I seriously didn't want to do the 2011, but I thought, well, if these people are going to do it, I can't just go down there and tell them this is what you got to do, blah, 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 without sort of doing it myself. So I went down when they came over, had a talk with them. I'd obviously put an entry in for the Parish Walk. Their backup team, they were the ones that were worried because they had no idea where they're going. So what I did was, the day before, we took them around the Parish Walk course in the car, and we stopped off at every church, and it took us 6.5 hours to go around the course in the car. So they had an insight of where it was, because if it wasn't for that, they said, they would never have been able to get it, because they had 3 people finish, which is the gentleman who I was doing the work for, who brought the guys over. He finished, his wife finished, and one of his work colleagues finished. The rest of his work colleagues all got to peel, or some got a little bit further. So then he continuously started bringing them back for about 3 or 4 years after that as well. But because I'd helped them they decided to invite me over to Cape Town for their big walk. There's a big walk that they have, which is it's an 80k walk, 50 miles, but they have 36,000 competitors, but it's not all in the 80k, because they have an 80k, 50k, 35k, 30k, then there's a 25k, 20k, then it went to 15, 10 and a 5k, and we started from in starting point in Cape Town and went out to a certain turning point and came back. And as we were on our way back, all the other races started at different times. So basically everyone started at different times, but everyone finished around at the same time. So it was a mass sort of finish in some respects. So in our event started like 2:45 in the morning, and there's probably about 30 walkers, and the debrief for it all is like, it's dark, be careful, watch out for the cars, because you could get killed, you know.
Lovely.
So, and there were a few close incidents, because there's the taxis, and then there's obviously people coming out of clubs, and the drink driving was pretty rife, and you were walking in the dark at that point. So I was pretty lucky in as much as that I won that event. So
first overseas person to win it, I think, did I read?
Yeah. So that was quite nice. Yeah. And there's a funny thing as well, because as I was on my way back coming in, and it's probably about 3 or 4 miles from outside Cape Town, there's a car suddenly pulled over to one side, and this couple got out and they started waving at me and shouting my name, and it was a guy, Turner Sports, the Turner Sports shop. Well, years when I was a teenager, there used to be one in Castletown that was run by a guy called Richard Turner, and it was he was out there, and he'd just been on holiday there, and he'd seen, I think I had a Manx flag on the back of me, my shirt, and he's seen the Manx flag, and he stopped and he gives a shout. I had not seen Richard for about 30 years. I carried from once in the Ireland Championships.
Okay.
But that's probably the last time I seen him, and up to that point then. So that was quite a surreal sort of moment.
Sure, yeah.
But then after that, we came back, and Philip, the guy that brought all these people over, he decided he's going to bring more over for the following year, 2012. And in 2012, he said what he would do, he'd invite the winner of the Parish Walk, men's and ladies, over to South Africa to do the big walk. And he also was inviting me, and he invited Andrew Titley as well, because Andrew was because Philip used to come out walking with us then at that point. So that year was the year 2012 when Richard, Gerard and Vinny won the Parish Walk together. So he brought the two guys over. And I think
they held hands so they both get a holiday.
Yeah, and that year I think we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in because I think Richard won it. Richard won it. Vinny was second. I was third. Sue Biggett was fourth, and I think Andrew Titley was fifth.
Right, yeah. Bet your friend was liked from all the local South Africans each time bringing you lot over.
Yeah, stopping by winning days.
Yeah. No, it's good. Yeah, and there was on the very first one as well. There was quite another surreal moment on that was as on the return I was coming back. Suddenly there was a South African boy riding by the side of me. And I was getting a bit paranoid because you can't have anyone sort of riding by the side of you or walking by the side of you or being with you, because the class is pacing you. And I was getting a bit sort of stressed out, and he was talking to me and chatting away and where are you from? And I said I'm from the Isle of Man. And he knew about the Isle of Man because obviously I mentioned Mark Cavendish. He knew about Mark Cavendish because he'd done a little bit of cycling himself, this fella. So we're going through, and then one of the officials tried to stop him, and then one other guy said, no, he's the support rider, lead rider, with the lead runner, or walker, sorry, to go to make sure you go ahead at all the crossroads, so they stop the traffic, tell the marshal to stop the traffic. So that was what was happening, but I was getting frustrated because he was by the side of him all the time. So we got to a point where we came to a crossroads, and it was on a bit of a hill, and I carried on walking as they waved me, and he'd obviously stopped, and then I heard him, he was obviously went to stop pedal again. Next minute I heard it, and I thought, the chain snapped. I thought, it's wrong of me to probably say this, I thought, that's good, I can concentrate now on myself. And the next minute, he comes by the side of me again, and he was a black South African boy, and there's a white South African boy pushing him then, and he pushed him on the bike for about the next 5 kilometres all the way into the finish, which was absolutely amazing, I thought. And both of them were chatting to me then at that point, which I thought was an amazing thing to happen. And we sort of had a good sort of shook hands and had a bit of a chat at the end of it and all that. But it was the crowds out there, the people were really, really great. It was a fantastic event to go and do. But yeah, he brought a number of people over for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
actually.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and we went back to, I think we won 11, 12, 13. He didn't hold it in 14, so. But that's where
you lot coming, you see, taking the prize.
I think there's one of the sponsors dropped out, and that was it. They couldn't find another sponsor, or they wanted some ridiculous money for putting it on or something like that. And that's where I got to know the guy, the South African gentleman that I walked with in 2015, because he was a colleague of Philip's, and he also walked in the big walk, and that's how we got to sort of know him. So it was great, sort of the way the whole network. And then even fast forward a few more years from that, we went down to Robben Island in 2016, where Richard won the first ever South African Centurion walk on Robben Island, which is an iconic place. And then I went back in 2017. I was lucky enough to win it in 2017.
Right.
Yeah, so there's lots of other sort of races that I've been sort of quite lucky to win in
well, I don't know about luck, but yeah. And do you do the because there's 100? Is it every year that's down in Castletown?
No. What it wasn't the 100-mile thing. I had a bit of my first 100 mile was it was in 2005 in Kings Lynn, and the 100 mile for me was always a spin off from the Parish Walk, because in the early days from the Castlenail drinkers doing it, the guy Steve Garden, who done 11 Parish Walks continuously. Them boys would go off and they do the Centurion Walk that I used to hear about, and I thought, well, what's all that about? And then they told us you had to walk 100 miles in 24 hours, and you get your own special pin number with your own badge. And the history of it goes back to 1911 when it was first run, first took place. And ever since then, everyone that's finished within 24 hours gets their own badge with their own pin number on it of what they finished. So my pin number is 1108, so I'm the 1108th Centurion since 1911. So I went to one in 2005 to Kings Lynn, and they DQ'd me. They disqualified me because I put my foot on the inside of a right-hand corner. It was a poorly marked course, and everyone for the first 3-4 laps were walking right across the course, you see. But it was in a way that me and Sean were walking together, and to get around the corner, I had to sort of step on the grass. And there's a judge there, and he just called me back. He said, you missed the corner. So I went back and walked it again, and as I walked past him, he said, you're disqualified. So at that point, I just said, don't argue, I can't be bothered. I don't believe what I'm hearing. So they took my number off and I went back. So I was always really disappointed about that. And so we had one in 2006 around the NSC, which we got quite a number of Centurions, but I always wanted to do one ourselves. I always wanted to do one in Castletown. So I had a word with Steve Taylor, who's he was chief judge in the 2012 Olympics race walking as the Isle of Man. He's a local lad, he's a Manx lad. He was the top race walking judge in the 2012 Olympics, and he went out to Rio as well to be sort of like a deputy then at that point, because each Olympics somebody else got to be the chief judge. So I had a word with Steve, and then Jock Waddington and Adrian Cowan and Chris Cale, and we all come together as a committee, and we'd sort of start a course around Castletown, a 2-mile course around Castletown, and had a word with the commissioners, went through the rigmarole of putting in for road closing order, because we had half the road closed and half the road open, and my thing was to get as many Centurion walkers in the Isle of Man. So that year we obviously pushed it really, really hard. We got 101 entries. We had 93 people that started on the day. We got 48 people finished it, which is over half. And we had 32 brand new Centurion walkers, which is amazing. And sort of half of them were Manx people. So then the Centurion walk is sanctioned by the British Centurion Club, and certain clubs vie for it every year. But unfortunately, it's been sort of dying off quite a bit, and I think they're not really putting a lot of effort into it in the UK, I'm afraid.
Right.
They just sticking it on 400 metre tracks now and just walk 400 laps around 400
What's that, a
track.
risk and health issue that they're going, oh, it's just easier to stick it on here?
Yeah, that's it, yeah, just because then, you don't have to worry about road closing order, you can have everyone in one place, you don't need so many marshals. Also, at the time when we first put it on the Isle of Man, we wanted, computerised timing, because the Parish Walk had brought the chips in at that point, and we wanted them in 2006, and they sort of they fought against it. They wanted to do manual scoring, and that was the way it was always done. We said no, we didn't want to do it. So then we had a really good timing system in 2015 when we held it. Then we brought it back again last year in 2015, and we, at the time, I always wanted to use it the centre of Castletown, but the square was getting regenerated at the time. It was all dug up, so we had to go out the square, and that's why we went out around the Southern 100 Courseway. We went out of Castletown towards the Southern 100 headquarters, then back along the Southern 100 start and finish straight, and then down Wallou Street back into town. So it's a 2-mile circuit that was. And so we brought the 2019 one into Castletown Square, and we had it sort of like, it was almost like, if you look at the course from the top, it was almost like a three legs of man sort of shape, because they went out the square, they went over the bridge and went off to the right road towards Victoria Road School, come back again, then they went out round to a place called Douglas Street, and then come back to the bridge again and went back up into the square. So it was almost like a sort of like strange sort of three legs of man. And we got, what did we have on that one now? We had, I think we had an entry of about 63, but we had about 53 starting on day. But we got another 32 finishes out of that one. And I think about 16 were brand new Centurions also.
And is your plan to keep running that, I assume, obviously, with what's happening this year?
It was just time consuming. We said to the boys, you just so much you got to really think of, because we had roads closed and had to obviously make sure there's no parking, no cars are parked on the way, and you have to go through the rigmarole and put letters out to people, and that evening, while we had the signing on, even on the Friday night, I snooked down to the roadway and I started putting no parking bollards out and in clear spaces, and I got a telephone. We had a helpline, and I suddenly got a telephone call saying, what are you putting the bollards out for now, because it's not till 12 o'clock tomorrow. So I said, I apologise, I'll come down and move them now. And I went back and took them all back. And actually, one lady told me off about it. And I apologised about it. And I said, I'm sorry. And then they were wondering about the noise. And I said, there'll be no noise, because we've got a noise curfew from 11 till 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I went and apologised to the people, took the stuff back, and then put it out the proper times, and everything went off, and visited some of the people after it was all over and done with, and they said they'd never heard any noise. There was no noise, everything was quiet, and they were sort of apologetic and stuff like that to us. So it was just so much you have to sort of,
it takes a lot,
I said to Steve and the boys that I don't particularly want to have to do it. Don't want to do it. I'd like to see another one on the Isle of Man again, but you really got to do it. Not in a 400 metre track, I want to sort of as natural as you can do. To be honest, 2-mile lap circuit isn't all that natural. Something about 4 or 5 miles would be a lot better, but obviously it takes a lot more to sort of
logistically
marshal and stuff like that.
But what's the longest ever walk you've done in a day? Is it 100 mile?
It's 100 miles I've done.
And what's your plan for the for the future? Do you carry on doing the parish? Is that
well, this year we had planned, myself and Andrew Titley, we were going to go off to Australia to do a Centurion Walk in Australia in April, and come back, and the main focus then for me was on the Parish Walk. I'll just have to see how it goes. To be honest, once they cancelled the Parish Walk, because obviously they cancelled the Australian one, then once the Parish Walk one went, which is probably about 3 or 4 weeks after the Australian one was cancelled, I just sort of cut myself off from the walking completely then, I went out and obviously done a little bit of walking, obviously followed Christian on his venture, which was an incredible adventure. And I just done a little bit of running on my own and sort of left the walking really.
Right. But you will get back to it.
Yeah, well, we did sneak out the other night there, myself and Andrew Titley. We sneaked out at 3 o'clock on Thursday morning AM at the Colby Glen to walk to walk the Parish Walk, but it wasn't to finish it. It was to, you know, see how far we go, like. But so we walked it up, and I went as far as the Ginger Hall. And at that point, my feet were starting to blister up a bit, and I said to Andrew, I'm not wrecking my feet just for this. So he was okay. He wanted to push on. So we were looking at a bus timetable at the Ginger Hall at the time, and we were discussing whether it was a school day or not a school day, and is this an up-to-date timetable or not? And he was going to push on, and so at that point, just as he was getting ready to go, his sister drove past, and she seen us. He turned around and she gave me a lift back home.
Oh, perfect.
So I got back home 3:30 in the afternoon. I WhatsApped him. At that point, he was out at Mackle getting wet because it started pouring with rain, and he had a hell of a night. I think it was a bit of a thunderstorm or something like that. It might have been. It was really, really bad rain. And we were thinking if we did go around, we probably would have made it in about 20 hours. But he got home just under the 24 hours.
Oh, right.
So we had a bit of a tough walk. Yeah.
I mean, he's done a lot in a row, hasn't he?
Yeah, Andrew's done. I know he's done well over 10 100-mile walks. Yeah. Either 100-mile as a 100-mile or 24-hour walks where he's gone past the 100-mile distance. I've been with him on a few walks where he's doing 24-hour walks where he's done the 100 miles and he's gone on to do 111 miles or something like that. Yeah. He's done another one, the one that they call Roubaix, which is 28-hour walk.
Okay, right.
Which they normally go up to around about 120 miles on that one. So I've followed him around on quite a few walks and that sort of stuff. So he can have the crazy stuff doing 100 miles.
I used to work with his sister-in-law, I guess is probably the right. Yeah, so I know the name, and obviously see him around because he lives down this way, doesn't he? He's down south of the Isle of Man.
Yeah, he's down Colby now. But unfortunately, Andrew's got one more parish finish than me.
Oh, okay.
So I've done 17. He's done 18.
Okay.
So
are they the most?
No. The most is there's a guy called David Callister, and he's no relation. He's done 32 consecutive finishes, which I don't think that record will ever get beaten.
Is he still going now, or is he?
Well, he was. He broke the chain a couple of years ago, and I think he tried to come back, and I think he struggled for a couple of years, and I think he finished one, then he struggled again. Right. I think he struggled last year, but he doesn't do any training. He's a gardener, and he does obviously loads of walking up behind a mower, and he says that's training. That's his normal training, but he said this year's Parish Walk is next year's Parish Walk is training. Right, okay, right. But at 32, that's a phenomenal event. But there's other guys, there's other people I've done over the 20s and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's a big thing now. People pegging, not just doing the Parish Walk, but pegging more and more and more onto it. But I must also, while we're talking about the Parish Walk, you have to congratulate the likes of the committee that have been running it over the last 3 or 4 years, about 10 or 12 years really, and obviously led by Ray Cox, who's finished the Parish Walk himself. I've competed against him on numerous runs. He's actually won one of the classic runs, probably one of the ones I haven't really won, which is the Peel to Douglas, which I finished second in it. I was leading it one year and got pipped towards the end, but I've never won that one. I've won probably most of the other classics that I've been about running. But Ray's done a great job in his committee of bringing the Parish Walk to where it is now, and the phenomenal entries. I'm sure this year's one probably would have been a bumpy year, because I think it was probably up to about 1,200 entries when they knocked it on the head, when they cancelled it, and I think they nearly had two months to run before the entries closed. And normally, typical Isle of Man, people scratching around the last minute, so I think they would have been on probably a record time.
I was at, must have been tail end of last year, some sport award on the Isle of Man. Not the big main sports award. It was some other award. It was some business thing, but Ray won something, and I can't quite remember what it was.
Yeah, was that
they played a video?
Was that the sports awards or the excellence
awards? Yeah, it wasn't the sports. It was
I've seen that. Yeah. It was. And he deserves it as well because he's.
It was quite emotional watching it. Yeah.
He's the first year I won it was 2002, obviously 2001. I'm going down through Dalby, and Ray's trying to keep ahead of me, putting the signs out.
Oh, right.
Because the road closed. Because that time he was doing everything. He was going out with his vehicle with the trail with all the caution walker signs and one ways and all this sort of stuff, and he was just knocking them in as I was walking past him. But then he's got other people now to do it.
But you talk about that, and just the logistics of running an event over 85 mile, irrespective of you got 100 helpers, it's just stuff that goes on.
Well, even like the 24-hour walk that we had, having to get enough marshals for the 24-hour period, and they're the same with that. It's a hell of a job it is to do it. I think that, they've got dedicated people to look after that, and it's a really good committee. They've been doing it for years and years, so they can they're instinctive of what they do, but they've done a fantastic job. And I think the amount of people that are now walking the Parish Walk is quite incredible. And the amount of people, if it wasn't for Parish Walk, what would then people be doing now? That's what I think.
And you always see around March, April time where the nights start getting lighter, and suddenly there's a lot of walkers in fluorescent jackets going around, and that you always think, Parish, that's the immediate thing I see as you start to see those people kind of coming out.
Well, the actual the entry day starts December the 1st, and normally from December the 1st, then they start coming out in the roads, you see them. But what is amazing for me is the amount of ladies that are walking it now. At one time, it was a male-dominated sport. It really, really was, even finishing and starting. But now, I think last year it was 50-50 split, and 50-50 split in the ladies that were finishing equal with the men, and obviously a lot of ladies kicking the butts of some of the men as well.
You mentioned Sue earlier. I remember in 2008 when I did quite a bit of training. I was training up and down a Peel Road, and she must have lived in Glenbarn maybe.
Yeah,
she went out of her way to find me, because I was doing quite a lot of walking to train for it, and she went out of her way to come speak to me about just to make sure I was walking right, and I wasn't, because I wasn't certainly power walking, but somewhere between that and trying to race walk with no skill and no training. And she was good enough to go out of her way and say, just keep an eye on keeping your feet on the ground, that type of thing.
Well, that's what, with our when we had this Ballagher Breakfast Club that we started, that probably all started in 2000. Actually, it was 2001. David Doyle, he contacted me when I won it in 2001. He'd finished it, and another friend of mine, Rosemary Crellin from Peel. Rory's a tough girl. David contacted me to see if I'd just come and have a chat with him about. He said he wasn't going to do it again, but I think if I went and had a chat with him, he obviously sowed the seed that he wants to have another go at it. So I said, okay, well, what we'll do is I'll come down and we'll go out walking on a Saturday. We'll have a walk together. So he said, do you mind if Rosemary comes along? Yeah, cool. So we went along. We kept that up for months. We did, going on a Saturday, and when the nights got lighter, we came out on a Wednesday evening as well. And then that year, because their first year, I think Rosemary finished 27th, and I think David was my 25th that they might have finished. So this year, 2002, I won it. I had a really good time. My time had come down quite a bit. David finished third, and he was 3 hours 50 off his time. And Rowie finished 5th, or was it 6th? And she knocked something like 2 hours off her time as well. And then we kept that sort of Ballagher Breakfast Club thing going. Andrew Titley joined us, and Eamon Harkin joined us, and Ali Brand joined us, Jane Mooney joined us.
Okay.
And then eventually later on, Jock came on board, and a few other people came on board. And it was getting a little bit too big, so we started knocking on. So it went from me in my running days just doing everything solely on myself, and early walking days doing it solely myself, to doing group walking. And I think for anyone that's listening and they're just doing it on their own, they really need to buddy up with some other people, because if you walk on your own, it's tough. If you're two, you walk, you just walk and talk. If you get a third person in there or a fourth person in, it just brings the competition element in a little bit. Somebody will push it a little bit more, or make you walk a little bit further, or just get you out when you wouldn't have got out, and that sort of stuff. So,
And just one other question I do have is Bethany.
Well,
did too.
Well,
what
the
year
thing
was that?
Well, that was 2008. That was the year it absolutely poured down with rain. I tell you what, until Christian came along, that was the biggest thing I'd ever sort of seen. You know, I'd take my half to what that girl done, because I know what just put one lap in is that, and she walked. The first lap was quite a decent time that she had. She was well under 20 hours when she walked her first lap, and it was the worst weather ever we've had. And she came in, and I think she just changed some clothes and went back out again. So I'd gone home, and then I'd sort of, because I'd finished quite early, I'd go home. Normally I can go home and have 8 hours rest, and go, well, at least 6 hours rest, and go down and see the last few people coming in for the last few hours. So I went home, I had a bit of rest, and I got up at 11 o'clock at night, and I went out to, I went and parked out by Glenduff, and went all the way back up towards St Jude's. I met Bethany, came in there, walked with her from there through to Lizette Church, and out going to Ramsey, and then I had to go back and get my car. And I was chatting to her, and really at that point I just said, "How's things going, Bethany? You all right?" And she just, Bethany's a girl, when she talks. So she was, the conversation was just flowing out of her. She was on a real high. She was walking good. She was nipping along really well. It was amazing. So I left her, and she was on a real buzz. So I went home, went and had some sleep, and I got up again in the morning because I wanted to come watch her come in. And I went up to Port Jack to watch her come in at Port Jack. And we were all waiting around the corner from the Port Jack, and we knew she was coming down through Onken. And she came round Port Jack, and the mum was one side of her, and Liz Corrin was the other side of her. And she was like the Walking Dead, she was, and she was zombied. And she was completely out of it, and she finished it. And I thought that was the most amazing thing I'd sort of seen, you know. I get a big kick out when local people do stuff. You know, I obviously see top athletes performing to the top, and you can get quite emotional when you watch people at the Olympics, but I get quite emotional when local people perform really well.
It's kind of raw sport, that, isn't it?
Yeah. And what she done was incredible. And then obviously the biggest thing since after Bethany is what Christian done as well. Because I've run marathon. I've been an endurance person for a long time. I've done well. Spain was back walking, and that's hard enough. You know, long days you do, and your feet are bad, and you're not eating properly, you're not drinking properly, and stuff like that. But what Christian done, and I think obviously the first thing he had to worry about was tapering himself back a little bit. And when you look at his first 3 or 4 marathons that he ran, they were good times. They were, you know, most people would have taken them. And I think, you know, he could have even tapered himself back a little bit more. But then to watch him go through what he went through on that first Saturday, you know, that really hot Saturday, you know, when he'd had his ankle problem, he'd had his blisters. Were obviously, when you got blisters, that's a nightmare when you're putting shoes on. You can, you know, obviously you can get by them, but at some point they get really raw before then they will go over, and they'll start getting better. But that Saturday he just it was the whammy of everything, you know, and you could see he was really at the game, and just to pull himself up, go home, look after himself on his own, in the conditions that we were all operating under COVID-19, was quite an incredible feat that he'd done. And then to come out, he bounced back a little bit. Then you could see obviously the fatigue was getting to him, and then it was really painful to watch him on that last marathon. You know, the real obviously I had a run with him on the 18th marathon, and he was on good form. We sort of kept him chatting and stuff like that. He maybe just died a little bit on the last couple of miles coming into Ramsey. But he had a really good run on that, but it was painful to watch him on that last one. You know, you knew what he was going through, you could see what he was going through, but he ran every one of them, which is an incredible thing. You know, there's people.
The fact that someone of, you know, your, like you say, your endurance background and having run quick marathons to appreciate what he's doing.
Oh no, well I just obviously he was working forward. His training was all good, geared going around to do a London marathon, which is just one marathon. Okay, you could probably get away on that doing a back-to-back marathon. Maybe struggle to get a third one in, but generally that would be about it. But then to do a crazy thing and say what was on the spur of the moment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was impulse really
it was 5
to say,
days.
well, whoever put, I don't know whether he come up with 19 or not.
I did, but sorry, Chris.
But to come up with that and then say,
he did say I wanted to do an Eddie Izzard style.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, here you go.
But to come up and to do that, but
yeah, 5 days notice, no real planning, no tapering, no training for it.
And you say the Eddie Izzard style. Well, Eddie Izzard is great, has fantastic feat what he done, but the amount of people that he had around him, the planning that went in before that, the planning that was happening on the days and after night time, and all the the aftercare he was getting, where Christian didn't have any of that at all, even having to look after his young daughter and stuff like that. And to watch him sort of, it was really, you could just see, and no matter what you could say, you know, come on Christian, clap and all that, there's nothing what you could do, you could see that could alter that pain that he was feeling, you know. other times you can G someone up a little bit and give them a boost, but yeah, that was really, really painful. And it got to that point where you went into the NSC and do 19 laps or not do 19 laps, and I think there's a bit of sort of frustration there might have crept in, and that sort of knocked them back a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So it's good that they did get out and do a couple of other loops and then head back at home. But I caught them again coming through Grieber again and the Highlander, and also up past the Hawthorne onto Ballacrane. And you could see he was in a lot of pain. And actually parked my van and came back and went down towards Ballacrane instead of staying on the green. I just wanted to go back and just see him coming in, that thing, and that's when he was obviously totally emotional. And I was emotional.
Myself, none of us cried.
He was, you could see it was all over for him, which is really, really brilliant. That when you've got that sort of finish in the sight, it's amazing feel when you're going through that much pain.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
I just hope he's recovered. Okay, I've had a couple of I've WhatsApped him a couple of messages, but obviously he's got other stuff to go and do and that. But hopefully he's recovered.
I had a voicemail from today actually, and he's fine. Yeah, he's back, obviously been back running a while as you'd expect. Yeah, he's looking for his next.
Well, hopefully
like
now,
most of us, you need a
well, hopefully now he can maybe fill that void, because obviously he can maybe go on the half marathon in August or the marathon in August because they're going to run that, you see. So maybe he can get that. Whereas if it was still under the same circumstances we are as UK, there's nothing really you can go for, and there's nothing worse when you haven't got anything. You just complete the goal, and you've got this big void, and you've got nothing to sort of like set your sights on again.
Was I need to find something. To kind of get there. That's how he works. Yeah. Most of us do. I think it's more we kind of want something to focus on, whether it's competitive or not.
Yeah, because you just have that sort of like post-marathon depression, or whatever they call it. Post-19.
Post-marathon syndrome. Post-19 MS.
But that Bethany's and
I do remember Bethany's doing that.
No, it was and unfortunately Bethany's never come back to do the Parish Walk. And Bethany had obviously she was quite open about it as well. She had her own backstory as well,
right?
And it was really, really. She dug herself out a big hole also. Yeah.
Oh right, okay, right.
So she got there's a website somewhere there.
Oh right,
you
okay.
can find it. I'll look it up at some point, but because I obviously spent a bit of time walking with her and just talking to her about stuff that had gone on before in her previous life.
Right, okay, right. I didn't know.
Yeah. And then she went off and done quite a lot of other ultra sort of endurance walking or events after that, some running events, but I think she's come down off it now. Right. 2 parish walks is enough, I think. No, just two incredible feats by 2 incredible people. Really, when you think about it.
Well, and yourself, those back-to-back wings in the parish continue now at, I'd say, but more mature age, but continue to be very competitive in that. It's very impressive. And
I must admit, my body's sort of holding out quite well. Actually, So
do you do much maintenance in general?
Not really.
No.
I'm probably not the person to listen to for anything. Okay. Runs on his own, doesn't do anything else, doesn't eat properly, doesn't stretch properly. Yeah.
You're still not doing too bad for that, though.
Yeah, I'm all right, really. Yeah. I can still probably. I'd like to get back into a little bit of running again, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, right. Thanks for coming in today. It's been much appreciated. Really fascinating. Like I say, I think definitely a legend of Manx sport. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Robbie.
But we've just got for an island of sports people. You'll be in the next 100 years. Chat them all, because we've got an island with so many incredible sports people on this island.
Yeah, it is.
Achieved so much, really. Yeah.
No. We've got a long list of
world
people.
Champions.
We've got people we need to get back to that been suggested we speak to. It's luckily we picked quite a good subject matter to talk to people about. So thanks, Robbie.
Thanks very much, boys.
Cheers. Do you want to check us out, Manny?
Yes.
Been a while since I've done this. From trying to remember.
So wherever you're listening to us, please like, share, subscribe, and leave those 5-star reviews, pretty please. On social media, Facebook, we are the M Word Podcast. Twitter, Manx Sports Pod, and on Instagram, we are the M Word IOM.
Just about remembered them.
Well done, Matt. It's word out from Mark
and word out from Matt.